Well, the Sunday school teacher was discussing the 10 Commandments with her group of 5 and 6-year-olds, and after explaining the commandment to honor thy mother and father, she asked, is there a commandment that teaches us how to treat our brothers and sisters? And little Johnny piped right up and said, yes, thou shalt not kill. And that's the commandment we're on today. Number 6, thou shalt not kill. Georgiana Tree West, in her book, Prosperity's 10 Commandments, shares, every commandment that is of God voices an essential truth. This truth is applicable to the life of every person. In the 6th commandment, you shall not kill, we have an essential truth, and it is a grave mistake to limit its meaning to the taking of life. Because hopefully most of us in consciousness have evolved beyond that. Some people still live in that lower consciousness, but most of us have moved beyond the taking of a life. We must look for enlightenment in the word kill. We must look for the enlightenment of a deeper meaning in the word kill in order to understand the application of this commandment to our lives today. To kill is to destroy. And Moses said, you cannot kill. But people are either always trying to kill themselves or to kill their circumstances. Yes? Kill out something in some way. A slanderous word can kill a reputation, right? Many marriages have been broken up with destructive words that kill love and kill joy and kill harmony. We often kill our own dreams through our destructive thoughts of fear and doubt, don't we? We kill our dreams. So this idea, thou shalt not kill, we need to take to heart and look at it in this new way. What are we killing in our lives? What are we killing out in our lives? Mrs. West also says, fear kills faith and prevents divine ideas from circulating freely. Condemnation kills praise and appreciation, as Suzanne shared in her meditation. The power of gratitude and thankfulness is killed out by condemnation. When we criticize and condemn our circumstances, we're failing to see God's omnipresence everywhere. We're saying, oh, that won't work, or that's no good, or that's bad, or that's crummy, or that's... And when we criticize, we're not seeing with the eyes of spirit. We're not seeing the everywhere present essence of God. Fear, she says, condemnation, and criticism are killers that choke off life, substance, and love. Evil thoughts, evil words are killers, and those who use them are violating the 6th commandment, you shall not kill. Doesn't that make sense? I mean, I love this kind of simple interpretation, simple to understand, but more deliberate in practice and in development of watching our words to see that the power of our words create, and so to see that what we're creating in our life or what we're destroying. The power of the word, what is it? The power of the word is in the tongue. The power of the tongue is in the word. Which way does that go? I'm not sure. Mrs. West tells us in the Prosperity's 10 Commandments, there's even a more subtle idea connected to the word kill. She says that yes, death is disintegration, but stagnation is the starting point of disintegration. And lack of circulation causes stagnation. So we're right back where we were last week on this idea of the spiritual law of circulation. That first things stop, a pool of stagnant water begins to dry up and go bad, and then eventually it's corroded over with algae and green muck and stuff, and then the sun absorbs it all away and it's gone. We find again in this week's commandment, the same as last week's, that we have to keep our good in circulation if we want to grow, if we want to prosper, and if we want to expand. And so Mrs. West's interpretation of you shall not kill is in relation to developing permanent prosperity. She says, you shall not take your wealth out of circulation. You shall not take your goodness out of circulation. When you withhold, you're not putting things into the flow of life. As we circulate the gifts of God, they increase in our lives. For instance, if we want more love, we first take hold of love in our own nature, and then we establish love in our heart, and then what? We give it out freely, right? And it grows and expands and comes back to us multiplied. Words and actions of kindness and tenderness and friendliness are carriers of love. And when we give that out, it circulates right back to us. We have only to start circulating, speaking words of love and appreciation to prove this law and to see it in action. It's so simple to think, and yet hard to do. To think, if you're in some circumstance of your life and it's not working out, it's so easy to get overwhelmed or burdened by it. And to remember that spiritual law is almost counterintuitive to all of that. You know, that feeling of heaviness, you can change almost immediately if you lift yourself up and start speaking words of appreciation, start speaking words of praise, start speaking words of prosperity, start thinking thoughts of love, start thinking thoughts of praise, start thinking thoughts of prosperity, start doing actions of love and prosperity. Put something into circulation, and it will change your circumstances. You can prove it for yourself over and over. You know, I remember Phil and Dorothy used to say, you know, don't take our word for it. Prove it for yourself. Because once you prove the principle over and over and over, then you take it on in consciousness, and it becomes a way of life for you. It's also true that if we desire more joy or more happiness or more health, the more we radiate into the lives of others, the more that will come back to us. So we can see the spiritual law of circulation in operation in the fact that just something as simple as, in order to have healthy bodies, we have to have circulation of blood, we have to have oxygen flow in and blow out, we have to have the balance of intake and the balance of release. Without that, we can't have healthy bodies. And so to have prosperity in our lives, there has to be a receiving and a giving. There has to be a taking in and a letting go. And we just have to really work to practice at whatever level you are in consciousness with your money, with your prosperity. Start trying to prove this law for yourself. I don't care if you give $1 and you put it in circulation and you watch for it to come back to you tenfold. It will. 10 times the amount of joy you've put in circulation will come back to you. 10 times the amount of love you put in circulation will come back to you. But you have to work the law, right? What's the saying? It works if you work it. It doesn't work if you don't work it. That's the interactive part of the service today. It's been said that riches should circulate through our affairs as air circulates through our lungs. In and out, inflow, outflow. There has to be a balance of both inhale and exhale. Jesus gave a really powerful illustration of this in the parable of the talents. When you'll recall, the point is that we're expected to make good use of what we have, of what we've been able to demonstrate so far in our lives. We're not supposed to hoard it. We're not supposed to clutch it or cling to it, but we're supposed to make good use of what we've demonstrated at any given point in our development. We're not supposed to wait until we have it all before we begin to circulate something. We're not supposed to wait until we have more until we circulate something. Put something into circulation, because the only way you're going to have more is to let go of some and put it into circulation. So we have our own abilities that we've developed. We have our own talents, each of us in different ways, and we're expected to use those and to develop those so that we increase them and live them more fully. You'll recall in the story, the parable of the talents, there were 2 servants that received 3 servants. 2 received money from their master to be able to, while he was away, and they put it into good use, and they put it into circulation, increasing it, and when the master got back, they were highly praised and highly rewarded because of what they had done. The one servant who took what was given to him and hid it, took it out of circulation, and couldn't show any increase for it, was not only severely reprimanded, but what the little bit that he had was taken away and given to the others for their increase. Jesus is teaching in this parable that circulation is life and that stagnation is death. The circulation is life, and hoarding and stagnation is loss, Circulation is the secret of increase, and it's one of the greatest lessons that we can learn. Flow of life. Concerning permanent prosperity, life is a flowing experience. And I'm just at such a place in my own consciousness where I'm just learning to let go as if I'm floating down the river on a raft, and I'm throwing my oars overboard. I'm just in the flow because there's a trust and an understanding of truth. Either we live these principles and work these principles or we don't. And so you step into the flow and you let God be God and you let God guide you and you open up. Life is a flowing experience. In fear, in greed, in joy, in sadness, there's a human tendency to hold on. We're clingers. Klingons. Who was the Klingons? Wasn't there a sci-fi thing, Klingons? We're Klingons. When life is equated with things, with your prosperity, with your health, with your money, with your relationships, with your possessions, with moments of fulfillment, there's always the threat of loss or always the threat of change, and it can feel overwhelming now that I've made it, or I'm at retirement and I have this, and now I have to hold this in place because I don't want to outlive my money, and so there's this hoarding, contracting, constricting energy. The discovery of the idea of the flow of life is one of the greatest attributes of consciousness that we can begin to take on and to develop. That I am in the flow. I am in the flow. Remember, what did Dorothy say? I'm in the flow of I don't know, but God does, right? We're all in the flow of an infinite intelligence that loves us, that cares for us, that can heal us and restore us and provide for us. And we just don't have to work so hard at it anymore. I would hope that all of us who've been in unity for so many years, I hope that we're finally reaching that level of consciousness where we can truly let go and let God. We've heard that for years, right? But practicing that, and really surrendering in trust and faith, in full trust and full faith, is a development of consciousness, isn't it? Because life will come at us to challenge us. Well, you need to step in and control this, or you need to step in and take charge of that. And that standing off, that letting go. Like the servants, Mrs. West says, we can only express in our own true sense of what we really are. She says, I know people who waste their time in a flow thinking how they're being hurt or damaged or injured by others. They talk about how they're kept back because of other people or against them. They talk about how good they could be and what marvelous things they could do if not for others. As long as they believe that, they make their beds in the valley of misfortune and ultimately become bogged down in self-pity, bitterness, and disillusionment. What to do? We have to take on this idea that life is flow, that no one and nothing is against us in all the universe, that God is for us and God is omnipresent, and the favor of Spirit is upon us every day of our lives. There was a story of a little girl who was afraid of tunnels. And whenever she was riding in a car or a train, when they'd come up to a tunnel, she'd dive for her mother's lap and bury her face in her mom's lap because she was afraid of going into the tunnel and then coming out at the other end. But as the years passed, she realized that tunnels were not as scary as she thought. And she even eventually remarked that she kind of liked them because of the idea that they have light at both ends, that there's light at both ends of the tunnel. This is a very significant thing to remember when we're talking about putting our wealth into circulation, putting our prosperity into circulation, putting anything into circulation. If we're going through a dark tunnel in life, that's not the time to withhold. That's not the time to constrict. That's not the time to burrow in. The 23rd Psalm tells us, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil." And the key word there is "I walk through." I always say, you can pitch a tent, stay for a night, but don't build a cabin there, right? Don't build a cabin in that valley. And this thing where she talks about, I know people who waste their time in a flow of thinking how they're being hurt or damaged or injured by others, have built a cabin in that valley of darkness. And they're living in that fear. And that's their whole life. And we're not those people. You are not those people. I am not that person. We walk through the valley of the shadows in the darkness, but we know that there's a mountain peak. We know there's light at the end of the tunnel. The thing that makes the difference in people and in circumstances that they face is that some people let that tunnel experience be the end for them. They build that cabin in that valley and never outgrow their fears. They never try to put something in circulation. Or maybe you had something in circulation and you lost it all, and so now you're afraid to put something back in circulation again. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. Financially, I've been thinking about how much money I coulda, shoulda, woulda had I been just paid a nanosecond more attention to things. But I didn't. I put it in flow. I didn't miss it. I thought I was doing the right thing. Sometimes I wasn't sure I was doing the right thing, but I did it anyway. And I've prospered in my life. Everything I've misspent in faith that I was doing something right has returned to me over here. The money I've sent out over there has come back to me over here from something else. But I think about some of the dumb decisions that I've made, which at the time, seemed like a good idea at the time, and you can't get that perspective like when you buy real estate and there's a 30-year loan on it and you're 25 and you think, I'm not going to hang on to this house for 30 years is forever. And then you get to age 55 and you think, wow, I'd own all that real estate free and clear now, and you think, oh no, but I sold it, after year 10 or something. I digress. There's just lots of ways you can do dumb things, but if you do it with love in your heart, the universe will compensate you. So you can't be afraid to put things into circulation as long as you're doing it in love and not out of envy or resentment or jealousy or get rich quick or acquisitiveness or grasping. This commandment teaches us circulation. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not withhold your wealth from circulation. It teaches us understanding the flow of life is vital to a healthy life. If you're faced with a challenge, don't be tempted to kill off the good thing that's trying to come into your life. When you're tempted to quit or to run, to abandon the project, to sink into depression, to stop giving, to take your good out of circulation, don't do it. Don't do it. Thou shalt not kill. Recognize that you're just in the middle of an experience to be met, and that it's developing that attribute in your consciousness, that attribute of faith, that I'm going to step up and I'm doing this, and I know God will provide. I know the law, the spiritual law of circulation, that as I give, so shall I receive. That as I put things into flow, flow comes back to me. You have to determine that no matter how real or how frightening a situation may be, you want to open your mind to the flow of wisdom, love, ask for good judgment, and then you build your assurance and you build your faith and you watch. You prove the law. You prove spiritual law for yourself only by practice. Does it work every time? It does, but sometimes you can't see how it's working because it works over here and you're looking for your return over here, It may help to look back in your life and recall the times when you were frantic over some crisis, when you were bogged down in some misfortune that seemed to be the end of everything. Were you tempted to run in those experiences, to run in the opposite direction? Where is that challenge now, she asks. Where are the people who were standing in the way of your good? Where are the failures? Where are the circumstances that seem beyond endurance? Francis Villian says, where are the snows of yesterday? They've become part of today's trees, plants, rivers, and oceans. All of them have been transformed, completely transmuted into new life and new forms. The truth is, you cannot lose your good. Your good is yours by right of consciousness. If you lose your good, you have the same consciousness that created it the first time, and you can recreate it again. Chances are you'll create more and better good because you've grown in consciousness from the first time you created it. And so if something goes out of your life and you want it, you want that again, you can recreate it because you have the consciousness that created it the first time, and you never lose consciousness. You never go back in your spiritual development. You only go forward. You reach this plateau, and then you go to this plateau, and then you go to that plateau of understanding and faith and consciousness. You cannot lose your good. The way for you to live and grow and expand is to cease trying to kill the wonderful thing within you. Stop trying to kill the good that's trying to emerge from you. Stop choking it off and holding it in. Begin to know that God is all, and that is all that matters. And you'll find yourself in a consciousness of universal flow. The economies of God are very simple. We receive justly for all that we give, and we must give freely if we would receive freely. The person who understands this and practices this prospers abundantly using the sixth commandment, thou shalt not kill, you shall not take your wealth out of circulation. So God bless you. And all the mistakes you've made are now absolved in the Spirit of God, and your prosperity is returning to you.